I'm Daniel Blaufuks. I'm mainly a photographer, but also I write, I do some video film work, and I teach at the university here in Lisbon. And I've been working for many years on this project, which is called Attempting Exhaustion, and follows Georges Perec's work, which I've done a PhD on. I mix Georges Perec with the German author W.G. Sebald. And the work, which is based on a window, a translucid but not transparent window, because it's kind of foggy stained glass, started many years ago, 12, 13, 14, something like that. And it just evolved quite naturally to this kind of work where I almost do it on a daily basis. In the beginning, it started because I was in the house in kind of a pre-quarantine, a long time before our COVID quarantine, and I started working around the window, and then I more and more focused on the window, and I started noticing how such a window, how such a room changes its light, not only in the course of the day, but in the course of every day, and in every week, and in every season, and in every year. And that kind of fascinated me, because it was also going a bit against the grain of the which I have been also of the traveling photographer. The further you go, the more interesting your images might be, the more tropical in a way, but also the more colonialist they are in many senses. So by photographing inside my own house and studio, in my own city, without moving, basically, I was going very much against that trend of photography and fighting it, and also finding out how deep can you go, how exhausting can you be, and how exhausted can you become by the same photograph. And apparently it hasn't happened yet. I haven't exhausted the subject, and I haven't been exhausted by the subject.
You are using these earth colors with this transparency, and then you have this bright spot. Usually it's in the center, but sometimes it's somewhere else.
Well, I also, from the beginning, I didn't want it to make a kind of let's say a Bernd and Hilla Becher kind of work where the frame is always still. So I decided, I mean, when I started thinking about it as a project that could actually evolve into something that would become some kind of work, I decided not to put the camera on a tripod, which was the start, because not all the days are the same, as the light is not the same, and I didn't want it to feel like a serious conceptual cataloging work in many ways. So that was one of the first decisions. And then I also started working with different cameras. So even in the Juan show, you have examples that go from a big format camera, so big 9x12 slides, analog, through digital to cheap Polaroid cameras, because also I think the medium makes the image. It's a completely different photograph when you do it with any different kind of camera. The light. I worked the light a little bit, but truth to be said is that the curtains are kind of brownish orange that you can see in some of the pictures, and also the outer wall reflects to the window is painted in yellow. The outer wall of the whole building, and in the center there is always this table where the tablecloth changes, obviously, from time to time as they get used and washed. So that changes a lot of the center light. So to go back to your question, I don't know how much of that is actually um, thought over by me or even influenced by me, or it's just the natural light and also the objects that change around the table. So the main thing, the objective is to show that there is an ordinary life, which is very based on Josh Beck. How can we photograph ordinary life where nothing ever happens? And that is through not only through the light that changes, but also through the objects and the tablecloth that keeps changing. So the table is being used for life, for normal routines, let's say, sometimes more and sometimes less, as the house becomes more occupied or more vacant. But that is one of the main goals, is to show how life can evolve and can be shown in a photograph, because usually photography has always been very focused on what is abnormal, what is out of the norm, meaning most of amateur pictures are done at parties, at Christmas, at Easter lunch, at a birthday, and even in art photography, a lot happens when something happens. And I was trying to do the opposite: is how can you show that nothing happens, which is our main life, and that goes back to what I said before. Obviously, when the photographer travels far away, it's easier to photograph, because even if there is nothing happen in the places he's traveling to, for him it's out of the norm. He's traveling, so there is something happening in his life. That just the movement is the happening in as such. So how can you photograph when you don't move, your camera doesn't move, you don't even go out of the house? That is, I mean, one, if not the main purpose of the work, is how do you solve that riddle to show how, I mean, most of our lives are quite boring. That's why we travel, or we have dinner with friends, to make it a little bit more interesting. But most of the daily routine is quite boring if we would put it in a book, and that's what I'm interested in.
To me, the table looked a lot like the stage of a play, and the window is almost a portal to another world that we can imagine what's happening out there.
But yeah, then what becomes of it, so obviously sometimes I or someone leaves something at the table that that gets to be photographed and becomes like a set in a stage, like you say, in the play of my life. Other objects are completely natural there, because they had to be there, but they also seem at some point stage, and vice versa. And obviously, as you say, the window is always seen as a portal, as a way out. That's the thing with this window, because the window doesn't show what is outside, because it's a stained glass. The mystery is it's bigger, but there lies also the question, obviously, why don't I open the window, or why don't I go out? Why don't I go out and photograph the rest of the world? I think that question is also there. That is the curiosity that the project arises. Is it stage? Is it real? Is the light the daylight, or is it some artificial light, and so on and so on?
I would like to talk about two photographs that I've seen, and they both involve liquid. One is called heat, and it has just one glass of water in the center of the table, and it looks as if it just came out of the fridge. The other one is another glass with lemonade, but it's only filled about a quarter. It looks as if someone already drank most of it. One where the glass is inviting the viewer to enjoy the water, the fresh water. The other one shows the after fact, when it's almost done. And you can actually, although we never had that lemonade, we almost feel that satisfaction of having drunk it.
Yeah, but I think the photographs feel like still frames from a film. So that's one of the thoughts I have on photography, because we see a photograph and we rarely think outside the photograph, outside the frame, but also we rarely think on what happened just before the photograph or what is going to happen after the photograph. So the photograph is like an extract from life. It's like, I mean, if we take the example of the glass, is like going to a fountain and putting some of the water that flows from the fountain in a glass. We're not going to stop the fountain from continuing. We're not going to stop that flow, but we have a bit of the water in our compartment, which is a glass. And photography does exactly the same with time. We're not going to, I mean, it's the wrong idea that we are stopping time, the time flow, or even capturing time flow, but we can take a little bit out of the time and put it in our glass, which is a photograph. But that said, they feel like, or I want them to feel like still from an ongoing movie. So when you have that glass with cold water, I want you to feel, you know, and especially we were talking before about the heat, is a photograph that we can go back and kind of mentally refresh ourselves with just the thought of the water, or in the other photograph of the lemonade. Because even in an ordinary life, even in a boring life, let's say, in a normal routine life, those things come in. That's the other thing of the project, is through this window. The window is, as I said, stained, so you can't really see outside, but it doesn't mean the world doesn't come in, meaning the weather changes, obviously, even inside the house, because it gets hotter and colder. And if it's raining outside, it will rain inside. Maybe not technically. The water will not, thank God, come from the roof, but you feel like it's raining outside. In me as a photographer, me as a person will feel the rain. Or if there is a tragic accident or a bombing, it will come inside. It's not something that we can leave outside, you know. So the photographs also contain all that. So meaning, in that glass of lemonade or of water, the whole, I would say the whole crisis we are facing with global warming is inside that glass. I don't think I need to write on top of it, this is about that. It is about that, because it's about our daily life, you know. So I think the photography can go much further just by symbolizing than actually by showing the problems. I think we're all got used to seeing the problems, but we still don't think about them, or we're unable to solve them. So maybe we can get closer through symbols, like in painting of the Renaissance and the Middle Ages, where everything was symbolized much more than actually depicted.
I would like to talk about the presence of the citrus, lemons.
Yes. Well, the lemons are a symbol. The lemons are a very strong symbol of acidity, of sourness in life, of jealousy as well. Um, so they stand there for that. Actually, in my photographs, although obviously they are also very photogenic because of their yellow color and of the inner aspects. I mean, all fruits are very photogenic, as you know. They're all very painterly, but they do symbolize lots of things. As I said, I mean, the glass of water does not only stand for the heat or for lack of water resources. It also stands for transparency. You know, it's a symbol for transparency. So the citrus, the lemons also stand for the sourness in life. It can be sunny outside, but still our life can feel sour, melancholic, and or sad. You know, but then again, the lemon will give you the lemonade that will give you refreshment and happiness in hot days, and even in cooler days. So I like to use symbols that they 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 come back. It's not like I use them once and then I'm done with it. They actually come back many times, being the water glass, being the lemons, flowers at some point that obviously stand for life that is beautiful, but it will fade away sooner or later, and rather sooner, as we know. Um, so I try to work very much with the idea of monument instead of document. In the words of Cassine, I think in the idea that I am creating monuments to memory, to remembrance, but also to life as it is. And I'm not necessarily documenting, although I think this project also is documenting. But at the same time, you don't often see people at that table, so you will need to document it much further if that would be the aim, to fully document what is happening there. So I think it's rather an elegy, a song to what is happening there than factual text about it, because I think it's much more open. I think it's much more. It leaves the much more credit to the viewer, who can imagine whatever he wants or feel whatever he needs to feel at that moment.
Also, the curtains, they remind me a lot of the theater curtains because they are opaque and they are very tall.
Yeah, I mean these things happen. It's not like I put the curtains on thinking on of this project, but then they kind of everything works together as a moment. I think that window and that table and the fact that I decided to photograph is a moment of bliss. You know, it doesn't happen that often in our lives. That's how why it became kind of a life project in many ways. But yes, but the curtains can move, they can close, and the window is the stage. You know, and the light becomes the stage. The light in the window is what is happening really. It's not the plate on the table, it's the light that is the center. The plate is an actor, obviously, but is a supporting actor, you know, that just helps the light to show its power even more. You know, so the curtains would, I think the curtains are fundamental, but they happen by chance in many. I mean, it's not chance that I hang the curtains because it can become very hot there through these windows, but it's chance that then they work in their own way through the photographs.
The objects on the table, they also reflect the light, the china, the glass of water, even the lemons. A surface is, you know, light is bright.
Yes. No, and obviously that's. I mean, I kind of look at the window as a cathedral light, or a synagogue or a mosque. I visited some mosque in Iran. They had this. I mean, in a much more magnificent way, obviously, but they had this kind of light. So I think the window that is stained glass also as a symbol of its time. I think we live in a time where nobody uses stained glass anymore. We use very transparent glass, which I think it's also a bit dumb, because seeing what is happening with the weather, I think we should go back to stained glass, because there is. But also, I think the stained glass has mystery, and the normal glass, let's say, which is transparent, has no mystery, but symbolizes the world that we want today. We want a world that is absolutely, that we can absolutely see through, where there is no mystery, there are no ghosts, there is nothing we cannot understand. That's the world we live in today. So I see it also as a symbol that the window is has the light of a bygone time. You know, it will be gone as soon as I leave that apartment. The window will be gone, because all the other windows in the building are already gone. So that mystery also, and that is the light on the China and so forth. That mystery comes through that light that is given by the stained glass. But I feel it's already the light of a, not only of a gone time, a gone era, but of a gone mentality in many ways. You know, and I still feel. I think it was Diane Arbus who said something like, a photograph is a mystery with a secret within, or something like that. And I feel photographs should still have some kind of riddle. They should not be. And painting is that. I mean, we don't look at a painting and say, okay, this is a man with a dog walking by the river. I mean, there are some paintings like that, but either they have something different, or they're not very interesting. And I think photographs should not be like that. Oh, there is a man walking by the river with his dog. They should have a little bit, oh, why is the man, you know, there must be some mystery in photography. And in this series, the mystery is given by the stained glass, by the light that comes through.
Your show in Rouen, how many photographs do you have there?
Ooh, I don't know if I know how to respond to that question. Many, a lot. I don't know. Actually, I mean, because it's been over a month now that of the opening. But there are, again, there are, like I said, different techniques. There is smaller photographs. There is larger photographs. There are photographs framed with glass, photographs without glass. There are Polaroids in many sizes. And then there's actually another part, which is another ongoing project, which is the non-diary called The Days Are Numbered. So it's a lot of work, actually, for that quite small space. It's not a very big space, but I think it worked really fine. I was a bit afraid of how the setting would go, especially because it's like a window, and like a shop, and it has its own windows, which in the end I think it worked very well with my window. But it's a lot of work, so I don't know. I mean, there are even some works which have different images. There are even slides, which, if we tear it down, it's 36 slides, which is a whole. No, it's actually 30 slides. I'm sorry. So it's a lot of images. I don't know the number now anymore.
Are you planning to continue this series?
I'm working on it. I still work on it. I'm not planning necessarily to show it more, but I would not say no to invitations. I mean, I have an upcoming show in Lisbon in January, where I will show new work and not go back to that. But if there is interested in showing that, I will definitely do it and add new work, which is what is happening in Rouen. There is older work and new work. So I think I will continue as long as I am in that flat, in that apartment, which I don't own. So anything can happen at some point. But I think I will continue because I'm still fascinated by it. It's not something I feel it's done, actually, and I probably will never feel, because I am still surprised when I see the window with a light. So it's not that I say I'm going to continue this project. It's more like, oh, what a light! Let's get my camera, which is easy because the camera is in the next room. So I'm kind of always prepared if I am in the house. So yes, I continue, but without any specific plans for it.
You started the project in 2008, 2009. You are still, working on it. In the meantime, during this decade, you did your PhD. So you've been through lots of changes, intellectual changes, emotional changes. How these transformations influence the way you look at your approach?
Like I said, when it started, and it was not a project. It started actually I ended up doing it on Pavese, on the Diaries of Pavese, because Pavese was also very much shut in his house, and at this point I was in my house, and then it evolved to Perec, from Pavese to Perec, when I started to englobe the window, because before I was only using the light, actually, without necessarily using the window. So it became from something that was more felt than thought to something that were, through Perec, more thought than felt in many ways. And I think by now it kind of equilibrated the two. But I had obviously read Perec, and that's why I chose it to be one of my PhD subjects. But when I started studying it and writing about it, obviously it became clearer to me, and it made also my project with the window become clearer as well. Why was I doing it? What does it stand for? And that's why in the end, I mean, before I did the first window exhibition in 2016. So it was long after I started the project, and the first exhibition focused on the window, and I called it obviously Attempting Exhaustion, after the Perec book, where he sits down for 3 days in a cafe in Saint-Sulpice in Paris and writes down everything he sees from his coffee, from his table. Which means in 2016, which is, I think it's actually the year I finished my PhD, or was it maybe 2017, but I was very much aware there that I had created something that was Perecian. And that came through the PhD. I don't know if I mean, I knew Perec, obviously, but I don't know if I would have called the project after Perec if I hadn't done the PhD, because I became much more academic in my way of thinking, and also understanding how Perec, and that's also the connection with Sebald, even if when we read Perec we're not necessarily thinking about it, he's only writing about the Holocaust at the same time, which is a subject that had interested me for a longer time as well. So the window project kind of apparently shuns the Holocaust subject from my work, but for me it doesn't at all, because I'm living there despite the Holocaust, despite what is happening in Syria, despite what is happening in Ukraine, despite all things that are happening in the world. So actually it is a project about all those things without even mentioning it, and it's not even necessary that people will think about it. It's just it's just important to me to know that it's there, and that came, I think, through my PhD, because of Perec, because of Sebald, where things are not necessarily expressed in a obvious way.
We live in a time when younger generations have a tendency of distancing themselves from what happened during Holocaust. And in fact, they even try to find different interpretations, when in fact that's what it was, a Holocaust.
Yeah.
You are trying to maintain awareness through this metaphor. How do you think it would help to keep that awareness in our younger generations?
Well, I think one task that I took a bit upon me is to bring the Holocaust into an art museum, which is already, when you do that, you transfer the public, you bring the archive into the museum. But at the same time, I think the further we get away from what happened, the lower the interest will be necessarily in it. I mean, the dimension of what happened is obviously immense, huge, you know, and it's here, and it's in Europe, and you feel it for a long time still. But at the same time, we could, if I would be working on Napoleon, on the Napoleon Wars, which are the beginning of the contemporary Europe, of Europe as we know it today, nobody would be interested. So I'm a bit afraid or aware that it will, at some point, the Holocaust will not interest quite anyone. You know, this can be in 50 years, can be in 70, can be in 100, but there'll be a point where other different horrors would have, you know, submerged the Holocaust. So the only thing we can try to do is to extend its memory for a longer period. And this, I think it's important, not necessarily, but also for the memory of the ones who perished, but mostly for the sake of our future, to repeat the same mistakes. But if I'm an optimistic day, I don't think they will be repeated, but there'll be other mistakes that will be made, and there'll be other realities to face, as we are already facing it today. If I'm pessimistic, I would say the course of the world cannot be changed by memory. I think it can only be maybe postponed. I mean, and I feel the crisis we have now in Europe politically, and aside from the Russian-Ukraine, what is happening now there, but aside from that, the political problems we have in Europe with extreme right and lack of trust in democracy has more to do with the change of generation, that the last generation of politicians that lived through the Second World War has gone now. So we all have politicians that were brought up after. So that is already a sign that the memory is fading strongly. That's why the whole thing of the European community is starting to, you know, to fall apart. I hope it doesn't, but you can feel it, and I think that has already to do with we had a blessed time in Europe because of what happened before, like a vaccine. You know, we're trying now to extend that vaccine a little bit further, but it's not going to be forever. People will forget what happened, and it will not come the same way, but it will come in a different way. So I hope my work can still raise questions that are important, and by this delaying it and helping other generations maybe to work on it. But I don't feel anymore like I felt maybe when I was 30 or something, that this would be the cure for the preventing the future, you know.
Have you considered photographing windows in synagogues, churches, mosques, and other worship
Hmm.
places?
Not really, because I'm really more interested in domestic life, and my window was not obviously not thought. It's not even an architectural feat. It's not even I don't know, a building. No one even knows the name of the architect. So that's what I'm interested in. It's a nondescript, normal building and window from the end of the 1940s in Lisbon, and there were a lot of windows like that at that time, which are obviously more and more disappearing and will be only a memory soon enough. So no, I think, I mean, I can relate to them, but I'm not interested in the grandeur, in the idea that is already behind the building of a temple and of any religion. I mean, I'm not interested in photographic terms. I mean, because it's already made with that purpose. So when I said I'm interested in domesticity, is if I find that light in my own house, that is a way to a kind of religion for me. Not necessarily a established religion or a religion that we can name Jewish, Catholic, or Muslim, but some kind of faith. You know, I think that light brings faith, and what maybe you see through the photographs is, and through that light, it's faith. Whatever that word means, and whatever it is that you have faith in, it can be in anything. You know, it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily on a known religions. It can be faith in nature, which is probably the faith we most need by now. So I'm interested in that light, and not the light that was already built for you to have faith in something very precise.
Before we wrap up, how can people find you as a photographer and also as a teacher and, you know, other activities that you have?
Anywhere people invite me. No, but I have an ongoing website. I have an Instagram, and I do lots of books actually. I have and I just published a book with. This is a Portuguese collection with a whole work. I mean, whole with a choice of the work, and it just came out. And I actually saw it's selling in Paris at the Pompidou as well. But I have different works that are published in even the Window Project is published in actually in a Japanese book. So you find me on Google and on internet, and mostly I give workshops in Lisbon often in a garden. So that's another way to find me if you want to come to Lisbon, and shows and exhibitions wherever there is the possibility. You know, I work with the Jean Gaultier Gallery in Paris, where there is a show actually. I mean, they close for the summer now, but after the summer they'll have still a few weeks. And in the show in Rouen at the Centre Photographique, which will be until early October, I think.